Welcome, poets, to this week's episode of the Poet's Dilemma podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline King. Thank you for joining me. Before we begin today's episode, I'd like to preface our discussion with a trigger warning. We are going to be exploring the dilemma of living in and through traumatic experiences. I'm pivoting this week from my originally planned episode, and I'm going to root us more into the present state of things. I'm recording this episode 1 week after the Los Angeles fires broke out. These fires devastated so many homes and lives so quickly. The world is an uncertain place, and there are atrocities happening all around our earth. A reminder that life as we know it can be stripped away from us so fast. In the wake of our now, I want to discuss Rebecca Solnit's book, A Paradise Built in Hell: The Extraordinary Communities That Arise in Disaster. This book explores how, in the face of natural disasters, people come together in extraordinary ways, uniting and forging communities among and by the bereaved individuals, supporting one another among the collective trauma and chaos that surrounds them, offering aid, resources, and safety in the vastness sense of the word. So, the dilemma on cue for today: how do I access community in the face of disaster? Let's get into it. I've always thought communities founded in the face of disaster to be an extraordinary human behavior. But mainstream media chooses to magnify stories of selfishness, corruption, and greed. However, within the layers of the in-between, what exists is love, bravery, and camaraderie, giving birth to a beautifully fundamental human sacredness: community. When I was young and I saw images of Hurricane Katrina on the television screen, helicopter footage of young men paddling on wooden planks, bringing bottles of clean water to families stranded on their rooftops, or rescuing exhausted dogs on the brink of their final rush of adrenaline. It was an absolutely horrific natural episode of destruction. But what is absolutely more horrifying was the lack of institutionalized and governmental aid. People were stranded with nothing but their feet touching the water. Thousands were suffering in the Superdome in Louisiana with no proper access to the use of the bathroom or to clean water. It truly is an appalling historical event in American history that as a society, we should strive to do better every single day because of it. What Solnit really brings to light in the face of these natural disasters, where yes, there can and are individuals who seek to benefit from the loss others are enduring, i.e. looting, petty crime, robbery, scamming, general taking advantage of, yes, that exists. But what we should draw our focus to is the instinctive human behavior to band together and overcome the disaster as a collective. And it is in this collective conforming that I am witnessing from afar happening in Los Angeles. There are communities via social media, GoFundMe, local donation centers, animal shelters, and their effort to ensure animals are being reunited with their proper owners. It's really quite extraordinary. And the silver lining is that when we come together, we can overcome and thereby rebuild. This level of attention and care can and should be encouraged and applied to all communities around the world. What happens when we show up for the world like this? We can do it together. Collectively, we can apply pressure to our governments to prioritize the value of safety, preparedness, and community. Given that the United States is the most technologically advanced nation in the world and the purest access to instant and streamlined capitalism the world has ever seen, and the fact that California, a state, is the 5th largest economy in the world, but even still, there wasn't enough water readily available for the firefighters to gain control of the flames. Therein lies the problem, and where we should focus our energy to fix. Firefighters risked their lives to keep communities, homes, public spaces, and people safe. Yet, they weren't afforded a surplus of the single necessity that would empower them to be successful. They needed water. It's disheartening to comprehend. You see the pain in their eyes. These firefighters that were being interviewed, you can see it in their eyes. They tried so hard, but they just couldn't win. Rebecca Solnit writes in the introduction of A Paradise Built in Hell, the extraordinary communities that arise in disaster. A Peace for All Hard Times by Rebecca Solnit. They want you to feel powerless and to surrender and to let them trample everything. And you are not going to let them. You are not giving up, and neither am I. The fact that we cannot save everything does not mean we cannot save anything, and everything we can save is worth saving. You may need to grieve or scream or take time off, but you have a role, no matter what. And right now, good friends and good principles are worth gathering in. Remember what you love. Remember what loves you. Remember in this tide of hate what love is. The pain you feel is because of what you love. The Wobblies used to say, don't mourn, organize. But you can do both at once. And you don't have to organize right away in this moment of furious mourning. You can be heartbroken or furious or both at once. You can scream in your car or on a cliff. You can also get up tomorrow and water the flower pots and call someone who's upset and check your equipment for going onward. A lot of us are going to come under direct attack. And a lot of us are going to resist by building solidarity and sanctuary. Gather up your resources, the metaphysical ones that are heart and soul and care, as well as the practical ones. People kept the faith in the dictatorships of South America in the 1970s and 1980s, in the East Bloc countries and the USSR. Women are protesting right now in Iran, and people there are writing poetry. There is no alternative to persevering, and that does not require you to feel good. You can keep walking whether it's sunny or raining. Take care of yourself, and remember that taking care of something else is an important part of taking care of yourself. Because you are interwoven with the 10 trillion things in this single garment of destiny that has been stained and torn, but is still being woven and mended and washed. Let this excerpt from Solnit's writing be a beacon to forging and witnessing our ability to erect safe communities, collectively, For it is these communities that pave the path of healing, and healing allows us to overcome. I discussed this previously in an episode of The Poet's Dilemma, that I often find myself engulfed by feelings of helplessness, causing confusion in knowing what is the proper choice to make. What is the ethical choice? What is the moral choice? It can feel overwhelming and defeating when devastation hits in its full diversity, whether the disaster is geopolitical, local, natural, or personal. Even just reading the news can very quickly send the mind into a defeated anguish, depressed and frozen, irritable and anxious. What first helps me is slowing down, comforting the mind so she doesn't wander and become even more upset about things that haven't happened yet. This is my trademark move. When something goes wrong, I imagine more wrongdoings, and then I begin to spiral. Nay, nay, slow down. I pull out my list of things to do when I am anxious, and I pick one of the actions. I invite you to open your phone, write in your notes app, or even text yourself a list of all the things that make you feel safe, calm, and help to reset the nervous system. Start small. Center yourself. Take care of yourself so that you, in turn, can help take care of others. The world is large with billions of unique lives, each with our own story of overcoming in the path to becoming. Pocket this image. While the world is filled with all of its horrors and tragedy and surprise, it is also filled with hope, generosity, and curiosity. When we hold all of the world's vastness in the palm of our hands, we learn that our kindness to each other shines as bright as a star. In lieu of the beauty and horror of the element of fire, I wanted to share something I learned years ago when I was working with my psychic mentor. Stay with me now. Stay. I don't want to lose you with that one. So she shared with me this beautiful anecdote as we studied and analyzed the element of fire together. She shared that the element of fire holds memory. The first flame that ever burned is the same flame that sparks a match to a candle, to a forest fire, to a rocket ship. And whatever origin of time and space and the birth of elements that you believe in, whether it's Prometheus that stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, or that it wasn't given, but in fact discovered by humanity, by the observation of lightning, volcanic eruptions, and random occurrences of combustion, which taught humans to eventually harness the creation of fire. As I was writing this, I got like this image in my mind of ancient humans trying to catch a wildfire. Like, could you imagine the first evolved humans trying to contain and catch fire? It must have been a shit show. Fire is unpredictable and powerful. There is something so incredibly ancestral and physiological that occurs when we stare into a flame. In an ode and in an act of remembrance to what has been lost in wildfires, I'd like to share a poem written by Sarah Cruz. Sarah and I met during our grad program at the University of San Francisco. Sarah's poetry is rich with history, accessing a great sense of poetic nonfiction as she aims to understand the world around her. motivated by analyzing the simplicity of life and the way in which the mundane interacts with the elements, with nature, and with time. Sarah's poetry is timeless, balancing nostalgia and hope. In this three-part poem, Cruz accesses the diversity of the fire's flame by reasoning with its sublime power to warm and to destroy. This poem is called Campfire. 1. It seemed like a normal fire until orange sky ash rained down. Structures explode. Smoke erupts. McDonald's on fire. 100-foot flames, 240 square miles. 2. Ghost of jammed cars. Charcoal black skeleton in burned out sedan. Elderly and disabled. Victims of another kind of weather, searching for fragment of bone in fragments of ash. Unprecedented fire becomes the new normal. 3. Perfect storm driven by weather, the irony of all the chimneys left. Charred trees. How is your heart today? Visions of singed deer run. Birds drop like autumn leaves. 2.5 pounds of material left that was human. 3.5 million in fines. Aligning with the intention to do and be good, I'd like this episode to conclude with a final suggestion before I go ahead and share a poem I wrote. In a world that causes me anguish and fear, it also brings me hope and play. Let's root into the latter. By doing so, we collectively harness a newfound power of community. Survival is in the numbers. Let's partner with one another to help our neighbor feel seen. Stand witness to the stories around us. I truly believe that is all we want from life. To be seen, to be valued, to be appreciated. And once we are witnessed, it is then we are safe. To live in a collectively happy earth relies heavily on community, love, and art. Share love, create art, be community. This poem is called Eyes on the Fire. Eyes on the fire, eyes in the flame, tears burning when I hear her say my name. Amber, let it out, cry it out. Carved in wood, you have my word. Crumpled reflections in aluminum, sacred in the mundane. Mystics, freaks, punks, take back the night. Take back the night. Hold tight to fright. We're scared as hell. We're scared as hell. Fear is the trigger, the bullet laced with ignorance, and the pistol, a paradox. We were all children once. When I think of freedom, I think of a child, humming a nursery rhyme, the hymn of curiosity, not afraid to cry or sing off tune, taste buds so alive, the bitterness of a radish, the sourness of a pickle, tickles, tongue says yuck, the gut, a virgin to spirits when the spirit used to see, now we can't seize to fire. Helplessness is racing thoughts, anxiety in the variety in which one can die. Sanctity wrapped me in a blanket of my youth when freedom was my breath, before gunshots, bombs, crooked ballots, and chains. Forsaken me, forsaken me. Let's bow. Nose to knee, knee to the ground, palms down, ear to the earth. Do you hear her? She's calling your name. I hear her calling your name. She's telling us it's time to come home. Before I wrap things up, I wanted to just give a little disclaimer for today's podcast. I unfortunately don't have access to my book collection since moving abroad, so some of my references may be fuzzy. I did need to find Solnit's introduction excerpt online, and so if there's any mistakes in my reading, please let me know. I'm learning each day, day by day. All right, poets, that concludes this episode of the Poet's Dilemma podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline King. A theme we can choose to carry in our collective narrative is the power of community. Even when all else has failed, we can write it by becoming it. Love and peace. We are our blessings. Good night, poets.